Hi, I'm Paul from the Studio Rats. In today's video, I'm going to be building a live board to go out with my AXE FX 3. I've been using the AXE FX 3 for some time and I've used it live, and to be honest, I find it the absolute perfect solution for me to go out because I can connect my in-ear monitors to it, I can connect a mix to it, it's got loads of different inputs and outputs, it sounds fantastic and it's really versatile. Now, when I go out live, I like to use some external pedals. I personally feel that real pedals work better than some of the pedals that are actually included inside the AXE FX, or to be honest, inside of any sort of modeler. So what I'd like to do is to take out a few of my favorite pedals and put them on a board. Now, the board that I'm going to be using today is the Boss BCB-1000. I think this is such a great design for a board. Basically, it's the size of carry-on luggage, so you can fly with it. It's built like an absolute tank. If I take that off, and then you've got your board underneath. Now, you can fit other stuff in there. Say you're doing a gig and you want to sling some clothes in there as well, they'll fit. So it's got loads of space and it's a decent sized board. Now, in the studio, I use a Boss ES8. So what I'd like to do when I go out is to use another switching system. This is a Boss ES5. This is the smaller brother of the ES8, and it's got 5 different pedal inputs. The great thing about using a switching system, live, if you're not using true bypass pedals, and say a pedal goes down, it doesn't matter because you can just switch off that particular pedal. All of these are completely isolated, so you can have a combination of the pedals on and off at the same time. And you can also change the order of all of the pedals. So it makes it incredibly useful to use, especially for live. Before I start throwing all the pedals on the board, let me just show you this website. It's called pedalplayground.com. This is not a sponsored video. They don't even know I'm making this video. But I think this is such a useful site for people that want to build pedal boards. Now, there are other websites that can do this, but for me, this one is so easy to use. What we can do is we can add our pedal board and then all of our pedals, and we can do a sort of virtual build before we start attaching stuff to our pedal board. And it just makes the process quicker by planning it. So here's the website. Now, what I'm going to do is to add the pedal board first of all. So we're going to be using the Boss BCB-1000 for this. Now, this gives me an exact representation and the dimensions of the BCB-1000. Then we can start adding our pedals to it. Okay, so the first pedal, we know we're going to be using the Boss ES5. So let me just put this on my board. Let's put it over there for the moment. I'm going to be using my Klon KTR. Right, let's stick this over here for the moment. Next, I want a compressor on there, so let's put in my Keeley compressor plus. Again, let's move it over there for the moment. Now, I want a tuner, so let's put the TC Electronic Polytune 2 Mini. Next, I want to put my J-Rocket Clockwork. So as you can see, it's listing all the different pedals that all these different companies make. Ideally, what I would use for this board would be the Jam Pedals Warco, but it's not going to fit on this board. So my next favourite wire is the Exotic wire. Now, lastly, what I need is an expression pedal. So let's use a Boss expression pedal for this. And let's use the EV30 because I've got one of them. So now that I've got all the different pedals that I'm going to be putting on this board, what I can do is to start to move around all of the different pedals on this virtual board so I can find the sort of perfect location. So I want my wah-wah pedal to be underneath my right foot. So let's move that over there. Now, I've got this little space here, so I could put in the Polytune there. That sort of fits nicely. Now, ideally, what I'd want to do is to put the expression pedal next to the wah, but it's not going to fit. But what I can do is just to fit it up there. I'm just going to be using the expression pedal for volume rides and possibly for turning up reverbs and that sort of stuff. Next, let's get the compressor on the board. Again, it doesn't matter where I put this because I'm using the ES5. I can switch these to whatever position I want. And let's move the KTR up here. Now, another great thing about this website is that you can move these pedals around to get them fitting any which way you want. And lastly, I want the clockwork. Now, as you can see, I can't fit anything on there, so let's move the compressor over a bit, the KTR, and there we go. Everything's on the virtual board. I know where everything's going to go. So now let's start the board. But before I do that, just in case you guys are interested in this pedal playground, you've actually got a donate button. So if you do use it, it's nice just to donate, you know, a couple of bucks or whatever, just to say thanks. Anyway, let's move over to the board build. Now, my first job is to get the Velcro on the board. Now, because the slats on this, on the BCB-1000 are quite narrow, which means there's a lot of gaps, which is very handy because we can get all the cables in the right places and that will end up looking really, really neat. But because they are quite narrow, what I've decided to use is some of this thinner Velcro stuff. Now, what I normally do with Velcro is to order it by big packs on Amazon. But I wanted to get this done today. I wanted to get the video out today. So I'm a little bit impatient. So I went down my local hardware store and all they had in was this sort of Velcro, this thin Velcro here. Now, I don't know if this is going to be as strong as hook and loop, but I'll give it a go. And if it's not, I can always sort of replace it later on. But as I said, first job is to get the Velcro on the board. So let's do that first. Okay, so that's everything stuck down on the board. Pretty happy with it. I had to move a couple of things around because of where the open slats are, where you actually put the cables through for the pedals. They weren't in the right position, so I've moved everything down a bit and across, but I think it looks neat. So now what I have to do is to wire it up. Now, there's a really useful thing at the bottom, ow, that's getting heavy, of the BCB, which you've got these screw points here. And what I can do with these screw points is to actually remove the board. So then I can wire it up upside down and then put it back in here so it's nice and secure. So anyway, back in a minute. Okay, so I've come across a couple of snags. Where I wanted to put the clon, the clockwork delay pedal has got this little expression pedal insert there. So the clon won't actually fit next to it because I'm in quite a sort of tight space. I can't get the clon right next to the clockwork in the position that I wanted. So I've moved the clon down. My other snag, which is more of a problem, is with the Boss expression pedal here. The expression pedal needs to go into this input inside the ES5. Now, what I need to do is to get some more low profile jacks, because at the moment, as you can see, these are quite chunky. So I'm going to get some low profile jacks, but it'll work at the moment. And I can get everything sort of set up as it is. But every time I build a pedal board, there's always something that I need. And I guess that's the same with everyone, unless you've got like an endless supply of stuff. But there's the board. It's wired up for audio. Now all I need to do is do the power. I'm going to be using my one spot. This is a CS6 for this. I don't need anything bigger than the CS6. I'm hoping that the CS6 is also going to be powering the ES5. I need to check how many milliamps that draws. But it'll definitely do all the rest of the pedal board. So back in a minute when that's wired up. Okay, I'm in a complete mess. There's cables and Velcro and stuff everywhere, but it's all wired up. So I've got the power going into all the pedals. Great thing about the this BCB-1000 pedal board is that you've got an interface in it as well. So you can have your inputs and outputs going in the back of the board, and then everything's sort of pre-wired, or everything's wired up from internally into the ES5. So it's really neat. You haven't got you haven't got to fight your way through different sort of pedals to try and get an input. It's just go straight in the back and it's done. Now, as I said earlier, there's a couple of snags, and to be honest, I think I'm probably going to have to relook at moving around a couple of things. But let me just explain the board. Now, what we can do with the ES5, I can use different banks of combination of different pedals. Now, if I hold down the bank button, I've got my 5 loops. And loop number 1, I've got my compressor. The reason why I want to use this compressor live is because you've got 2 modes. You've got a single coil mode and a humbucker mode. Basically what that does is affects the attack of the compressor. So if you've got a single coil and you want a bit of a faster attack, you can stick it in single coil mode. And if you're using humbuckers, you put it down in the humbucker mode, and it just lets a little bit more transient through. In pedal number 2, I've got the wah. Now the wah is going to be permanently on, so what I can do is to have different patches set up in the ES5. So all I have to do is to click one button, the wah's on, and I've changed the patch on the AXE FX. Now this makes it incredibly useful and incredibly handy because you're not tap dancing around all your different pedals, turning on wahs, then turning on different distortions or overdrives or whatever. It's one button and everything switches, which is the reason why I love using the Boss ES8 and the ES5. Pedal number 3 is the clon. Now I've got this set to a very sort of subtle boost. It just adds a tiny bit of drive, a tiny bit of top end. So if you're going for those sort of more, sort of not crunchy, but sort of tones on the edge of breakup, it sounds like this. And if I want a little bit more boost, I can bring in the compressor. Pedal number 5 doesn't have anything in it at the moment, although I might try and add a small pedal and fit it there. But pedal number 4 has the clockwork delay. Now the clockwork delay, again, I can use as a boost because it has like this sort of preamp section in it, which can add a nice bit of grip. And another reason for using this is because I like to have a small amount of delay going in the front end. I also have delays on the back end as well, actually inside the AXE FX. As I said before, the ES5 is going to be changing all of the patches on the AXE FX. So not only is this fantastic for looping in all of your different pedals, so you've got complete isolation between all of your pedals. You can have different patches with the different combinations of all the pedals, but it's also changing the patches on the AXE FX now. Obviously you don't have to use just an AXE FX, you can use any MIDI enabled device and that will change the patches on that as well. So the ES5 as a switcher and a MIDI controller is a really useful thing to have in your setup. Anyway, I really hope you guys got something out of this. There are going to be future videos where I'm going to be sort of showing this a bit more perfected, a bit more tidied up. I'm going to be changing some cables as well just to get it absolutely perfect. But until then, as I said, I really hope you guys got something out of this. If you did get something out of it, don't forget to like and subscribe, click on the bell button, and you'll be notified of any future video that comes out from the Studio Rats. I'm Paul, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.